Dune is undoubtedly my favorite series of all time. It is the catalyst for the creation of two of my favorite films, Star Wars and Nausicaa. Directly inspired by Greek mythology and the collapse of Rome, it possesses hypnotic writing and a deep complexity in its world building. The robust and detailed world is elevated by an array of characters, each with their own personal motivations and fears. There are numerous houses, factions, planets, and religions, as well as a dense terminology. The series has multiple protagonists spread across an incredible gap of time. Initially tracing the fall of House Atreides and the rise of Paul as the Fremen leader, Dune is a cerebral journey. Paul's prescient awareness of the future emphasizes the profound tragedy of the story. His actions spark a series of events that fundamentally impact the future. Throughout the duration of the story, he grapples with the psychological weight of being worshipped as a messiah. Frank Herbert dismantles the idea of the hero in order to reflect the cruel reality of history and nature. There are several adaptations of Dune. Although I adore the works of David Lynch, his 1984 adaptation was disappointing on a plethora of levels. It's visually muddy, the runtime feels bloated, but despite that, I find it somewhat charming. The fact that a Dune film, directed by David Lynch, starring Kyle MacLachlan as Paul Atreides even exists is genuinely incredible.
It's been very strange for me because these jumps from Eraserhead to Elephant Man to Dune are huge leaps. But Dune was a picture that took this much money, and so I never saw this money, and I just treated it as a normal picture. And it took 3.5 years to do it, working 6 days a week, but still the process of making the film is the same, tuning into this material and getting it somehow onto the screen.
The Sci-Fi Channel's attempt in 2000 is slightly better. It was followed by Children of Dune in 2004, starring a younger James McAvoy. The miniseries format definitely assists the storytelling, granting the narrative a little more time to breathe, although budget constraints and limited production values certainly hold them back. They feel more like stage plays. Regardless of their limitations, both miniseries capture the essence and visual style of Dune very well in my opinion. A 2013 documentary chronicles the efforts of Alejandro Jodorowsky as he attempted to create his own adaptation in the 1970s. The unmade film is famous due to its gargantuan size and the deviations it would have taken from the original novel. The script amounted to a 14-hour film. Jodorowsky and the renowned artist Mobius worked together in order to create a dense storyboard composed of 3,000 drawings. The film also accumulated the support of H.R. Geiger, going on to inspire the creation of Alien, as well as Salvador Dali, Orson Welles, and the band Pink Floyd. The increasing budget and demands of achieving the necessary scale to tell a story like Dune ultimately led to its demise. Denis Villeneuve has a robust and versatile catalog. His most renowned works include Prisoners, Sicario, Incendies, and of course Dune, an adaptation that is leagues above anything we've seen before. These films cemented Denis' skill as a detailed and ardent director. He first experimented with the science fiction genre in 2016 with Arrival, a tense work about a linguist who tries to communicate with extraterrestrial beings. The film garnered widespread acclaim. His following film was the sequel to a beloved classic, Ridley Scott's Blade Runner. In my opinion, Blade Runner 2049 is one of the greatest films ever made, crafted with a colossal level of respect for the original, elevating it instead of diminishing its legacy. My favorite aspect of the film is the cinematography and how it utilizes color. There are a variety of unique settings and locations, which allow for beautiful shots and uses of lighting. The city is drenched in radiant orange. Vibrant neon signs and colorful holograms light up Los Angeles. Like Dune, 2049 analyzes the idea of a hero and breaks it down to its essence. Kay has a shifting sense of self-importance. He's constantly questioning his role in the story. Despite how vital he is in the unfolding events, the truth of his past eludes him until the end of the film, when he realizes his memories were fabricated and distilled into his mind. Kay eventually accepts his place in the world and still concludes his arc as the hero of the story, having accomplished a colossal personal trial and reunited Deckard with his long-lost daughter. Inversely, Paul Atreides is one of the most important individuals to ever exist. He's the heir of House Atreides, the messiah and leader of the Fremen, and possesses Bene Gesserit, Mentai, and prescient abilities. This immense level of importance, responsibility, and power takes its toll on Paul. Holding the weight of the universe and time on your shoulders is an impossible task. One of the most tragic scenes in the book and the film is when Paul has a panic attack in front of his mother while suffering from intense visions. He knows his decisions will shape history and eventually lead to the deaths of countless lives. Paul's substantial role as the gifted and revered hero is not rewarding or victorious, but incredibly suffocating and traumatic.
Somebody help me, please. It's coming. I see a holy war spreading across the universe like unquenchable fire. A warrior religion that waves the Atreides banner in my father's name. Fanatical legions worshipping at the shrine of my father's skull. A war in my name! Everyone shouting my name!
Paul Atreides. You are your father's son. You are my son. You are the Duke. Paul Atreides. You know who you are. You know who you are.
Get off me! You did this to me! You Bene Gesserit made me a freak!
Dune Part 1 patiently builds the foundation of the story while imbuing greater emotional stakes in the plot. Although a few characters are stripped of some development that they received in the book, it still manages to flesh out the dense cast fairly well. Liberties, of course, had to be taken in order to make the story more digestible for audiences and to fit the runtime. The way the film is paced and how it handles the unfolding of information is delicate. Every line is used to establish or further a relationship between characters, add to the world building, or imbue tension. Action is scarce but appropriately used. Now that Part 2 has been released, this film feels infinitely more rewarding to watch. Arrakis is portrayed as an arid painting, hills of sand gleaming with spice, directly opposing the verdant and water-rich Caladan, the home planet of the Atreides. The sharp and distinct shift in settings mirrors the abrupt turn in Paul's life. No longer is he residing in safety, but now his family is contesting for the most important and dangerous planet in the universe. The film ends at an appropriate point, a monumental moment in Paul's development. When Paul and Jessica are confronted by the Fremen, it sets off a series of events that Paul had seen in fragmented visions. He meets Chani and kills Jameis, which is his very first taking of a human life, symbolizing the shedding of innocence. This moment signals the beginning of Paul's simultaneous rise and descent. The thing that, in my opinion, Part 1 captures the best is the detached and hypnotic feeling which Dune evokes. Existing in this universe is an unusual and transfixing experience. Part 1 possesses a methodical, otherworldly essence that Part 2 somewhat strips in favor of a more traditional, pulse-racing climax. Similar to the first, the second part of Dune is a mesmerizing achievement in filmmaking. It manages to translate the latter half of the book into a satisfying visual and auditory feast. Paul's ascension among the Fremen mirrors the rise of Feyd-Rautha as they both climb the ranks of their respective cultures. The fight in the Colosseum exemplifies Feyd's vicious nature. The drowned-out colors and the inkblot fireworks create a unique visual style, which acts as a way to make the Harkonnens much more distinct. The slow and deliberate foundation that Part 1 sets allows Part 2 to greatly benefit from immense payoffs. Paul's transition into a messiah is deeply engaging to witness unfold. The internal conflict of the characters is amplified due to the divided nature of the Fremen's beliefs. Stilgar is a firm believer, but Chani directly opposes the path that Paul has taken. Meanwhile, Jessica is actively perpetuating the idea that Paul is the prophet and the Messiah. The characters' varying beliefs create a whirlwind of tension and add stakes to Paul's emotional journey. The final battle is a brilliant spectacle, showcasing the scale of the conflict perfectly. The scene that plays out afterwards is equally incredible, amplified by dynamic and brutal choreography as well as intimate lighting. Part 2 itself is littered with much more exhilarating action sequences than the first, due to the rising conflict within the narrative. The action sequence at the beginning of the film is visually stunning and sets a precedent moving forward. Denis captures the visual nature and the essence of Dune extremely well, which was once thought to be an impossible task. I am incredibly excited to watch Part 1 and 2 back to back. On top of that, I get to reread Dune Messiah, which, in my opinion, will make the best film out of the entire trilogy.